But now at the same time as the guys who are left have to go back and forth to Florida for the foreseeable future, he fired a bunch of people, including, did you say, I mean, you may have the whole list there. I've seen names back and forth, and some of them, to be honest, probably weren't long for that world anyway, because they hadn't been using them. But Lance Storm, they asked Lance to come back. He closed up his wrestling school, changed his fucking life, and took this new job. And 4 months later, they're like, "What the? See you later."
Well,
what the fuck?
To be fair, and I don't think there's too much fairness from the WWE right now. I don't think they fired Lance. I think they furloughed Lance. And there's a difference between, and I'm not excusing it, but is
okay. Well, what is the difference? What is the difference? What is furlough? A furlough is a vacation you get in the Army. That's the last I heard.
Yeah,
how does furlough different than fired?
Furlough is a vacation where you're not paid, but they intend to potentially bring you back. Fired and released from your contract is just goodbye.
Well, I don't like either one of them. If I've made plans based on what they've told me up until this past week, that's fucking ridiculous. Kurt Angle? Why? I mean, obviously he was not wrestling full time, but why would you? The whole 9 yards. A lot of the producers, a lot of the agents, but they said they're going to cut employees too. I'll be interested in finding out who comes out of this better, the wrestlers that are the meat of the whole product and that they couldn't run the company without, or the employees that are a dime a dozen, to be quite honest, in fucking Titan Tower in the marketing department or whatever. I'll be interested to see who comes out better. But Vince will cut shit from whatever he needs to cut shit from. He's proven it. Remember in 1995, they came in and took all the water coolers out of Titan Tower?
Yeah, and how close was that to when they had the meeting, which led to Lord Alfred Hayes walking out and J.J. Dillon planning his exit?
That was the same time. They cut all of the talent wrestling or wrestling talent staff, like the Lord Al Hayeses and the James J. Dillons and those guys, like 60%. But yet on the other side, they kept the office employees, pretty good, but they took out the water coolers. So that's why all the fucking wrestling people were mad. And that happened like 6 months before I got up there and started my fucking office job. And I was like, well, I heard they paid these guys so well. What the fuck? I ain't getting that much. I came in at the wrong time, as usual.
Well, there's something to be said to the point that the WWE had a roster that was too big. And that there was a number of people on the roster that they didn't necessarily need. I mean, look, there are people they signed now just to prevent from going to AEW or anywhere else. But doing these cuts right now, in the middle of the pandemic, where guys can't go out and work for an indie or Japan or anywhere else.
Well, yeah.
After WWE just bragged in a statement they issued that they have $500 million in cash reserves as well as debt that they have access to, they could borrow against. Now they decide to cut all these guys right now.
Not even 2 months from now. Not even just, okay, we're so scared that we're $1 billion company, but Vince has lost a lot of money lately, so we can't afford you guys. We're just going to let you go in the middle of the zombie apocalypse. I mean, who all's on that list? I saw, once again, as I said, some names that you wouldn't really know they were there, but others I was surprised at. Mike Keota. The ref, he was there when I was there 25 years ago.
He was there longer than that.
Yeah, but I'm saying, he's been there that long. They let him go? What the fuck?
Here are some of the names on the list. I don't know. Some of these guys you may not even know, but some of them you certainly would. Drake Maverick, who I think was he Rockstar Spud?
Yes, he actually, he went to OVW here after I was gone from OVW, but I've met him a number of times, yes.
Curt Hawkins?
I've heard his name.
One of the ones that a lot of people are talking about, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows, who I think had just signed. These are two of the guys WWE did not want to let go anywhere else, and they just signed them.
Well, yeah, wait a minute. Didn't they just make a big deal out of you guys got to stay and we're giving you new contracts and raises and blah, blah, blah?
Yeah.
Well, what the fuck? If they'd have let them go so they could sign with AEW, they'd have jobs now?
Or New Japan, wherever they would have signed.
Or New Japan or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
New Japan ain't firing anybody over this, are they?
No, New Japan, they really seem to be doing everything the right way. Everyone does, really, except for Vince and the WWE, actually.
But see, that's the kind of thing. Remember, I even though I don't give a shit whether Bischoff drops dead or turns blue, when they brought him up there and then fire him 3 months later and he had moved to Connecticut at least part-time or whatever the fuck, I'm like, motherfucker, how can you trust anybody's word? If somebody had done that to me once, if I'd have moved to Connecticut in 1996 and 6 months later they said, no, you're done, you got to go. Well, I wouldn't have minded leaving, but I would have done some damage on the way out. Because that's bullshit. You broke it, you bought it. Once I tell somebody, move across the country, I'm going to give you this job, I'm going to pay you X amount of dollars, unless the fucking whole company goes out of business. No, I've made a fucking commitment.
But that's one of the problems with WWE, and that's why unionization would be beneficial here, because Vince McMahon has always seen these contracts as a one-sided affair. And by the way, they're a very one-sided contract where WWE can get rid of you and cut you and do whatever they want, but you can't get out of it.
Yeah.
You can't say, you know what, I'd really like to move on with my life right now. Nope, they will find a way to screw you over and add time to it and mess with you and devalue you. But when they're ready to say, you know what, we need to move on, they just cut you like that. No thought, no care, you're gone. Here's some more names. EC3.
Okay. I've met him, good guy. I haven't seen him on any of their TVs. I don't know what they were doing with him.
Here's someone who I'm high on. I think he's a great talent, and I actually hope he goes to AEW. Lio Rush.
Oh, good Lord. We've debated back and forth on him. $1 million manager, and I can't stand him as a wrestler, right?
That's right. Although I think you came around a little bit to him as a wrestler.
Well, he can work. That's the thing. Just he's so fucking minute, and he can talk like that. He's got that fucking heat-getting personality. You can't feature him in any type of main event scenario as a wrestler, but as a manager / mouthpiece, he could be right in there.
Eric Young.
Poor Eric. I didn't know he was still there. I like Eric Young. He was in TNA. He's a hard-working guy. But, that may not be a surprise because we've watched all these shows and haven't seen him. So what were they doing with him?
Heath Slater.
I keep hearing about Heath Slater, but I never get the chance to see him.
Another guy, I'm pretty sure you don't know this guy. Aiden English.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle.
That's once again, he wasn't wrestling regularly. Did they just sign him up for a bunch of money to just hang around, or what was his deal to begin with?
He was doing stuff behind the scenes, I believe.
Well, all right. I don't,
it's not about whether or not they deserve a job at this point. It's about when you decide to do this.
Well, yeah. I mean, the timing of everybody sucks, but I'm saying, how would you let Kurt Angle go? He obviously has value as a name, as a personality, as a backstage producer or whatever. I don't know.
Again, just to frame everything here, Vince just declared bankruptcy with the XFL. Then Florida declared that WWE is an essential business and can continue to operate. The main reason it would need to operate is to get the money from the television networks. It turns out Linda McMahon's super PAC, the super PAC she's running, it's not McMahon money, just to be clear, but the money that she can direct to different places on behalf of the super PAC she's running, gave the state of Florida a ton of money before this decision
$18 million.
$18.5 million.
I'm sorry.
And then they immediately cut all of this talent and say that executive salaries are going to be reduced. And I'd like to know if Vince is going to reduce the dividend he takes. That would be very interesting to know. I doubt it.
And by the way, that was the whole big recap because of all the inflammatory shit I said about certain people that you can't put on YouTube. So just so those people know that what we're talking about, you've recapped that for us. Wouldn't you know who won the pony?
We'll get back to this list in a second. The other interesting thing, I don't know if we've talked about this on the show, they decided in the last year or so that they don't want to be in Titan Tower anymore. They want to get a new office place. And I guess they were allotting $140 million into building out their new office for all the new employees they were going to be adding to the giant ship that is WWE.
Remember we talked about that last year whenever it became a big news thing. It's still in Stamford. It's down the road, but Titan Tower with the, the 4 floors and the fucking, multi-level parking garage underneath it is just not big enough. So they're going to spend all that money. And did they buy the building or no? They took a lease on the building for 20 years or whatever the fuck.
That's right. They were selling the office they're in now, and they had a lease. They didn't actually buy the new building.
But now they've fucking put that on hold because they got too big for their britches too quick, I guess.
Back to this list. Sarah Logan, who I don't know if you would really be aware of.
Not really.
Referee Mike Keota. Eric Rowan
there
of the spider collecting fame.
Well, maybe he can hop over to fucking Brody Lee's door quarter.
Also, Primo and Epico Cologne. Mike and Maria Kanellis, although I guess it's Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis.
Yeah, and when wrestling resumes, he's such a talented guy, and likes wrestling. When wrestling resumes, I hope he goes someplace that will appreciate him as a quality talent and a person.
Zack Ryder, who I'm assuming will go to AEW because he's friends with Cody, and Cody hires all of his friends.
Well, there you go. As long as you're a friend of one of the VPs, you'll always have a safety blanket.
I don't think you know this man. No way, Jose.
No way, Jose. I don't know him.
And here's a guy who I think has a world of talent and has been just horribly misused for a long period of time. Rusev.
I thought he was a top guy.
I thought he should have been a top guy. They don't know how to treat top guys there. That's one of their problems.
Ay.
Obviously, several writers apparently have been let go. And then in terms of...
Oh, I got to say this. I saw one... They apparently there's a female writer on the writing staff. That's a novel idea. They didn't have that when I was around. But anyway, she said after 4 months, my tenure has come to an end or whatever. Thank everybody. I'm so glad that I was able to work on a storyline that resonated with people. And she put hashtag Otis and Mandy. So now we know who was to blame for that fucking falderall. But they've got writers that contributed to a storyline. How many fucking writers have they got that one writer the only thing she's done in 4 months is contribute to one storyline?
You could look at
what the fuck?
You could look at any period of wrestling where it was successful, even Vince's vision of wrestling. And even if you want to say the Vince Russo era, 2 writers. They don't need all these writers. You want to lay off the wrestlers? Lay off all the writers.
Lay off all the writers.
In terms of producers.
And have Ernie Ladd give the 2 wrestlers a finish and let them have their match. Anyway, producers.
These are the producers that have been put on furlough. Lance Storm, Billy Kidman, Mike Rotunda, and, a funny little thing here. He was laid off on April 15th, so IRS got furloughed on tax day.
Oh, that's terrible.
Dave Fit Finley, Pat
Fit?
Buck.
Wait, Fit?
Fit Finley, furloughed. Pat Buck, Sean Davari, Scott Armstrong, Sarah Stock, and Shane Helms. A couple interesting things there. I guess Scott Armstrong furloughed, but Brian Armstrong, I believe, is still there. And in terms of other agents, I know Adam Pearce isn't on this list, so he would still be there.
Apparently they figure, if we're only going to do a fucking, 1 show a week or whatever, we only need a couple of agents. But here's that Fit Finley. He's been there for 20 fucking years almost. When people do something for you, for your major company, this ain't a deal like Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Oh shit, we can't afford, fucking soft drinks next week. They've been there for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, case of Keota or fucking Fit or whatever. And all of the pandemic comes up and suddenly after 4 weeks, nope, you're done. We ain't going to pay you for a while. What the fuck?
And
imagine if he still had the fucking $300 million he wasted on the fucking football, trying to do something else besides wrestling that we keep talking about never works out.
Well, that's the thing. He has the money to be able to pay all these people. And if you had to get rid of people, now isn't the time, especially when you put out a statement bragging that you have access to $500 million. But Jim,
yeah, and the president of the United States, you've got access to. But we can't afford poor Fit.